The Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. FedEx St. Jude Championship, first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs, picks, bets, preview, and the one and done play in the Listeners League, the final one of the golf season. That's down in the description right now. And if you want to get on some NFL preseason action or even just get your sub to runthesims.com for the year, highly recommend that you go to runthesims.com/Mayo or just use code Mayo. You get yourself 10% off that sub, which will have all of the playing time projection notes for preseason games and then all of the tools that you'll get throughout the year for NFL daily fantasy, wherever you play daily fantasy, and for the props market, for the betting market, your player comparisons. If you just want season-long fantasy projections, those are free. You just have to go create an account, and boom, you can use those no problem. Geoff Fienberg. I pointed this out in the newsletter, and I think I even said it on the show I did with Raza on Tuesday, that one of Adam Schenk, Lucas Glover, and Eric Cole were going to win the Wyndham Championship because I had been betting them most of the year, but did not bet them for this event. So, of course, Lucas Glover comes through with a 90-1 win. Saw a lot of winners out there. Myself, not so much a winner.
You even highlighted Glover on the show. Credit to the guys that were just on the wagon. Like, we were on it a few times. The Subfield, the John Deere, there were chances. I just got off. I'm like, I'll stick to my losers who don't win instead of sticking with this other loser who hasn't won he won the John Deere a couple years ago. Anyhow, yeah, credit to everybody who either jumped on the Glover train or stayed on it. I was one of the many who, you said there are many winners. There are also many poor souls who jumped off, but I wasn't even as close to you as actually betting him this past week. So it probably hurts less for me, even though I still suck.
I can see that. I had Cam Davis and Svensson, and like going into the weekend, I was like, Svensson's right there. He's looking good. Bad weekend for old Adam Svensson. Not great.
Yeah, it was a tough weekend for a few guys that just, couldn't find it. And Glover and Henley, I mean, they were sticking it. Their proximity to pin felt insane. And then, Henley gets multiple bad breaks coming home. But that's golf. It's so cruel.
Yeah, I noticed that Tim was bragging to me about Henley and how he was going to win when I saw him on Saturday when we filmed a Cuss Corner. So there's a new Cuss Corner in the bank coming at you sometime in the next few weeks. Additionally, so he ends up getting the bad breaks. But then Tim was like victory lapping Alex Fitzpatrick winning on the Challenge Tour, which I thought was odd.
Yeah, so Tim is essentially now claiming anyone who's come into his orbit recently is having success. And I don't even, you guys made a bet that involved Alex Fitzpatrick, but I don't even think he picked Alex Fitzpatrick. You guys just suggested it as a fair name for your bet, correct?
It was just pick someone in the $5,000 range at the Open Championship, and that was the only name he knew, so he picked him. And it worked.
I almost think the name was tossed out to him. He's also victory lapping. We did a show. Whenever we last chatted anything football, he talked up Josh Palmer, and now Josh Palmer's having this superstar training camp. So Tim's been letting me know.
Hold on. What does that mean exactly?
Okay. No, I am not one of these posting videos. I just read the guys. He is showing out every day. And maybe that's just relative to it's a maybe crowded receiving room. And there's this guy that he's playing really well. He's getting noted as whoa. Caught 72 balls last year. He's having a nice camp. I'm not here for a training camp highlight thing. And you're right. I don't even know how to quantify that. And we can make fun of training camp things. I'm just saying, Tim, last time we spoke on air, he's like, yeah, Josh Palmer's the man. And I'm like, I didn't even know who Josh Palmer is. And now Josh Palmer is getting noted a lot in training camp. And yeah, Tim seems to think everyone in his orbit is having success right now. I guess that's all I meant to say, and I used way too many words to get there.
Do you think this is just leading up to the inevitable Jets crashing down in the worst way possible?
It is setting up for glorious. I don't know what it's going to become of it. He has my emotional support this year. I've promised that to him. And Pat, his behavior since he went on that rant a couple weeks ago, where he even discussed it himself, he has like found a level of public measure. I don't know what's going on in your group chat, but publicly, he's actually being very level at the moment.
Well, he was warned that if he continued to post Jet stuff in our group chat, that our other friend would just continuously put Dolphin stuff in there. And I guess he felt like the amount of triggered that he feels upon seeing anything Dolphins related is not worth the fact that we don't care about any of this random Jets news that comes out every day.
Even in November, you wouldn't care. But yes, like even the football fans, we don't care about Jets radio on August 5th on our group chat in the middle of the day. Like no one gives a shit, Tim.
So you don't do that with the Chargers?
No. I'm not. You can like love. I don't. Chargers radio in my group chat, I would just get made fun of. Just like my buddy who loves the Titans post some like stupid little Titans thing in like Titans orbit. We're like, what are you doing here? No one gives a shit. Take that elsewhere.
So there's a bunch of stuff that happened throughout the course of the weekend. I guess we can talk about Justin Thomas and shrinking down the FedEx Cup playoffs to the top 70, because he ended up coming 71st. Adam Scott actually ended up coming in 72nd to miss the playoffs this year. I thought it was a pretty compelling watch during the afternoon. And it was kind of crappy. What was it? The day before, like they were just showing like three guys. It really didn't make any sense. They were showing, I mean, there was Ben Ann, Glover, and Henley, and they were starting to run away with it a little bit, but you had all of these other stories. And I just don't feel like, I mean, the ultimate would have been Justin Thomas making that chip, making the playoffs. I think that would have left a lot of people satisfied when it came down to it. But his back nine to try to qualify for the playoffs was just insane.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I guess you could say it was compelling TV. You wonder what TV does if, say, that is Nick Hardy, like just a random name, battling with Ben Griffin for the final spot. But yeah, I mean, we sort of indicated this Justin Thomas story, Pat, like since the end of the Open Championship, it's really the only compelling story in golf. Like, unless you want to debate Live and PGA, I mean, like actual on-course golf. And I guess it delivered. And any dude, there's people on Twitter. You say something nice about Justin Thomas, and they just like instantly need to shit on him. Like, we don't grade him on the same curve that we're doing the other guys fighting for 70, but you can acknowledge the guy, he's in a bad spot and is hitting his approaches horribly, and he's giving it his all at the same time. Like, sure, they're paid to do that, but we see a lot of golfer, like athletes, would just pack it in. They're rich enough. They'll deal with it. They'll fix it in the off season. He didn't do that. He literally fought to the end. And maybe I shouldn't be impressed or glad hand that, but I enjoyed it.
I mean, the Wyndham Championship needs something. That's why I like that they shrunk it to top 70 in ties, or top 70 total. Sorry, not in ties. Because if you have the top 125, because we saw this play out a little bit last year with Chesson Hadley, and he ended up making that hole in one, kept his card, qualified for the playoffs. And I do think that there's a little bit more to that, because you're seeing these guys with their livelihood basically on the line. That are they going to remain on the PGA Tour? Are they going to have to go back down to Corn Ferry to try to get their card back? There's something compelling there. But as you said, with Justin Thomas, like that's a real person that people care about, and you just don't have that. I guess Fowler was in that one year at the Wyndham when he was trying to do that. But that was a very rare circumstance where you saw a name that big trying to qualify. We had a bunch of guys trying to do it this week, be it Lowry, be it Scott, or Justin Thomas, and he finishes one spot out of it. But it will make people care a little bit more when it's Justin Thomas, not Chesson Hadley, or I don't know. I mean, if it was Ben Griffin battling Cameron Davis for that last spot, no one gives a shit.
Yeah, that's sort of my question. If it was like, Nick Hardy in that
care.
battle, they would show it a little, but they wouldn't have this all-consuming part of the coverage, which was nice. And you're right, it does take a bit of a absolute perfect storm, Pat, to get a player of Justin Thomas's quality and name value and CV fighting for that situation. I mean, that doesn't really happen. I would say, did this new construct, like, have they now set themselves up where Justin Thomas will miss no-cut events next year? Like, I love the meritocracy of golf. I'm all about that. So these no-cut events and earning your way into them is an accomplishment for Adam Schenk, for Eric Cole, for Brendan Todd. But I saw, an internet friend, Sundog Monkey, Martin Matthews, who had his like Twitter account like virused and is trying to build it back up again. But he meant like that could be the unintended consequence of now Adam Scott, Hideki Matsuyama, Justin Thomas, all world brand players not being in these events.
I think your official world golf ranking still gets you in. So under those parameters, you'd be fine. Or if you've won something, almost like the majors, like when we kept seeing Martin Keimer in the U.S. Open all those years, like, how the hell is he qualifying? It's like, oh, yeah, he won 9 years ago. So he has his 10-year exemption. I mean, Hideki won the Players, so he's probably good for a while, as we recall. But Thomas did win the Players, like 2 years ago? So he's probably still, like, auto-qualified for all these things. And he won the PGA Championship last year. I think that those things, I'm not positive with the designated events, whether those work or whether those don't. But if you're not in, you can go to the Canadian Open and try to qualify for the Memorial now.
Yes, you can do that. Could be a casual next year.
You say that about everything every year.
No, I said this year for next year. No, I could just watch golf at 4:00 on the weekend. That's enjoyable. It's enjoyable. Sounds lovely.
We'll talk about the new schedule here in a minute, but I think we do need to talk about Bryson for a second. He shoots a 58 in the final round of the LIV event to win it. That's kind of insane. He's using this new driver, and I saw an ad. I had never heard of this company before, and figuring how good their marketing is, I still can't remember the name of the company right now. But was there ever was it?
Crank?
Crank?
Yeah, with a K, like Krank. I might be wrong.
Oh, I mean, Cuss is coming up a big winner. He loves that movie Christmas with the Cranks, which is absolutely terrible. But either way, great advertising for them. I'd never heard of this company, and like I said, I forgot the name of it already, but if there's ever a time to get in business with someone, have them credit their new driver and shoot 58 to win a golf tournament's not bad.
That was beautiful. Minus 23 over 3 days at the Greenbrier. Credit to Bryson. That was a train. I bet Mito, who I think was in second, so I still never won a live bet, but that feels normal. Yeah, I don't even know what to make of that. I saw DraftKings at 100-1 on Bryson to win the Masters yesterday.
Would you
35-50 at other places?
Would you bet him 100-1 to win the Masters right now? Because I wouldn't.
Yeah, no, it's not like I ran to even bet it. There's a lot that goes into that. We see how these odds for the majors work in general. Like if you're not playing well, like he'll be over 60, 70 anyway in the lead up. But I would say I don't really have interest for him to win the Masters. I do think he should be involved in the Ryder Cup discussion.
Oh, you want to do this right now? Because I've actually figured out there was something about the Thomas stuff, and maybe it's just because they were showing him so often, the dramatics on 18, and then his interview afterwards about, he doesn't really give a shit about the FedEx Cup. He just wants to make the Ryder Cup team so badly. There is a very easy path for him to make this team. Do you want to know what it is?
Go to Europe, just keep chipping away.
Yeah.
The rest of the team is on. It's an uninspiring options. They're uninspiring options. So he's still in play.
There are, but if he goes and plays this tournament in Northern Ireland next week, and then the Czech Masters, and then the Swiss Masters, then the Irish Open, or 2 of those events, or 3 of those events, if no one really separates during the FedEx Cup, like a new name that we see, he's going to be given an awful lot of credit for going to grind over the off season, basically, on the European tour to try to get his Ryder Cup spot. That's going to go a long way to show that he really wants to be there. And if all things being equal, he's not ineligible as it stands right now. It's not, if Finau wins an event or comes in second, Finau leaps him with how they need to go, or if they're dead even right now, that if he just shows a little gumption and goes over to Europe, that's just going to play to everybody, oh, look how much he wants it. There'll be a positive narrative about him. If he wins the, I don't know, D&D real Czech Masters, people will be like, good enough, get him on the team.
Okay, so since it's the only golf event I actually care about left in the year, I think about it lots and I flip-flop on it lots. And I am now in this moment this morning, Pat, of the opinion when I bet, like when you bet a football game, you want the coach on the other team to do the things you don't want. Like you want him to kick the field goal on 4th and short. Like you just do. Please kick it. Or like punt. Do the things I don't want you to do. As someone who's currently invested in Europe, and I've spoken about it at plus 200, at plus 190, I've seen the USA as low as minus 145 this morning. So I could even like reevaluate my situation. These aren't even big plays. But, my point being is, as someone invested in Europe, do you know what I don't want the Americans to do? I've decided. Because if I was an American fan, I'd say, fuck it. Let's just bring the dragons. Bring all our dragons. And what I mean by that is Dustin, is Bryson, is Justin. Just bring the dragons. Bring the dragons. All of them. Fuck this riffraff. No disrespect to any of them. I would fill the back with as many dragons as I could fit in. And that would scare me as someone who bet Europe. I wouldn't like it on paper nearly as much. You don't win shit on paper, but that's what I think Zach should be thinking about right now. Bring the fucking dragons.
Do you think that there is, I know winning on the Live Tour is like whatever, but Bryson performed pretty well in the majors this year. What would you put the odds of him making this team at? Because I don't think it's very high.
I don't know. Then that's wrong. Then they're doing themselves a disservice.
Well, I mean, okay,
because
hold on. Bryson has a good run and has 2 great rounds over the weekend at Live Greenbrier. Why aren't we talking about Lucas Glover then, who just beat 156 guys?
I don't care. No, in this
there needs to be a standard to this. Like, if we're not going to consider Gooch at
Bryson's
all.
won Bay Hill. Bryson's won. Okay, yes, they both won U.S. Opens. If we're comparing it,
Yeah.
I just the ceiling. I would play to it, and if any part of it is around right there, I would do it.
So you would take,
and I think you're right. It's hard to quantify what the wins mean. But when the wins are coming from the higher end players, I don't know. I trust that they're good players. And I would I know you don't actually mean let's bring Lucas Glover and you're just trying to make a fair argument. They both won this weekend. How do we quantify the achievement? There's so many questions that come with a live win. I agree. I'm not here to put it on a pedestal, but because in my opinion, this back end of the USA has some uninspiring potential options. I think it's a fair thought to say, let's just load the dragons.
But if that's the case, and they have, let's say, 2 spots that are open right now, you don't think that they would take Thomas and Finau before they took Dustin and Bryson?
I think they would take Thomas and Finau over Bryson and Dustin. But I'm saying if the goal is to win, all the options should be on the table, and the options to me feel even more legitimate because the team just doesn't, I keep saying it, but it doesn't, it's uninspiring options to me that they're picking between at the moment. So why not throw these guys? And Tim was already in my DMs this morning to make sure I mentioned Gooch. I'm not really even thinking about him, but he's another uninspiring option for a pile of uninspiring options.
Well, the Gooch thing
but he's not a dragon, and I'd rather bring a dragon.
I mean, is he a dragon? Because he's the guy who's going out there on Live and beating all these guys most of the time.
Maybe he is. But unfortunately for Taylor Gooch, he's in his 30s, and he left the PGA Tour with 1 swing season event. So he's a lot harder for me to quantify than Bryson DeChambeau. That's just, when you go to Live in that situation, and you succeed on Live, and credit to him, and I've given him credit because he's literally the only player out. Like we've mentioned how shitty that next tier of guys that have gone to Live have been, from Answer, Neiman. There's more, but they've all been shit. I'm the only loser. I've literally bet Thomas Pieters blind every single event. I'm a psychopath. I am a psychopath. That is psychotic behavior. I was so stupid. Thomas, he's like going off the board 40, 50. I'm like, there's no way Thomas Pieters will not make me whole at 40-1 on goddamn Live. by betting him every week. Well, guess what? I'm a clown. Like, what a, and that was done to think like you just go there with any sort of pulse, like you could compete. No, I don't know.
I have a name for you. And he's not automatically on the team, but he's going to be on the team. But someone who hasn't like played great in a while and hasn't won in a while. It's funny that Spieth is just an auto here.
They can't. Yeah, he's 100, dude.
I know, I agree with you, but he's like behind Cameron Young in the standings.
Yeah, it's just really funny, and it would be for them to lose their heart and soul in the sense of the reasons I went to the brown bags on the USA laid juice at the last Ryder, at the last Presence, what was just because it felt like there was just this new guard led by Spieth and Thomas, not even calling them the best players, but being like, they seem to be the guys who are in charge of this thing now. Like they almost play vice captain roles in a 2-year lead up in all of it. And so it's, yeah, you're right. Those text conversations are probably weird.
So who, because if you look at the standings right now, like the top 12, I mean, I recall Cuss saying this a few weeks ago that he would just take the top 12. It might actually turn into that unless Sam Burns can make some noise. And I like Sam Burns a lot this week. He's going to be my one and done in Memphis. Ooh, but
looking at a 45, haven't touched it yet though.
Yeah, he's the sort of last guy on that tier before the odds really jump up to the next level of players. But he sits 13th. And the guys who don't have the auto bids right now, like Homa is close enough that one good tournament gives him an auto bid, so he's going to be on the team. So let's just factor him in. Spieth is probably automatically going to be on the team regardless of what happens. So you have Cam Young, Keegan, Morikawa, Fowler, Sam Burns before you're into Justin Thomas, Denny, Kitayama. Finau's down to 19th. He's behind Harris English in the...
Get Denny and Kitayama's names out of here.
Well, but they could play themselves on right now. Like, they could not necessarily pull a Billy Horschel and become a captain's pick, but if Denny or Kitayama can win in Memphis, it might be enough to elevate them up to close to, like, where Harmon's at right now. Because the only two guys that have actually clinched their spots are Scheffler and Wyndham Clark.
I haven't taken my pill today. Oh, God.
So,
yeah, again, this is all this uninspiring. I don't want any, as someone who bet Europe, like, please God, Denny win. Kurt go finish second place this week. A Denny Kurt 1-2 finish, if I am a European golf stan, is what I am cheering for this week. Then.
Yeah, but those guys are on the outside looking in, and they would have to probably win 2 FedEx Cup events or first, second, or something like that in order to get a captain's pick for the team. But if you just look at the top 13, only 12 make it. Like Burns is 13th. The guys ahead of him are Morikawa and Fowler and Keegan and Cam Young, Spieth and Max Homa. Like, that's probably going to end up being the team. Like, I don't think that Bryson's going to get on. I don't think that Dustin's going to get on. And unless Thomas goes to Europe and, like, wins an event, then he's not getting on either.
Probably not. And I have to come to the fact and say you're probably right. Finau could be in dead fish territory, although FedEx St. Jude seems like it's set up real nice for him, potentially.
Why would you say that?
Well, his odds were shorter than I thought they'd be for a guy who hasn't really done anything for a long period of time. But anytime there's just a premium on, he's kind of been all over the map. What I guess I meant to say is I've probably bet him a lot here at St. Jude. But the players he's around at the odds right now, I have no interest in Finau. And that's weird for me to say from a bet. Well, he always survives cuts.
There's no cut.
Cuts, I mean, like in my, like seeing the board, just red inking names, trying to get it into a list, which I can then turn into a betting card. Yes, no cut.
Okay, who do you think is the most likely to fall out and not be a captain's pick of those guys? Cam Young, Keegan, Morikawa, or Fowler?
Keegan.
I think it's Cam Young. Like, I think Keegan's done more than enough, especially over the past few years to be on this team.
Love Cam Young this week, though.
Do you? Why?
I think he's playing nice. I saw 55-1 staring at it. I bet nothing yet, and I'm happy the odds have remained. So hopefully they didn't change in our discourse. Because I like they've been stagnant. And I have a new thought that I suck right now. So let's just like let it breathe for me a little longer. That's my thought at the moment. But yeah, I like Cam Young this week. I think he can miss the landmines and go full throttle at a course like this.
He's the same odds as Brian Harmon, major championship winner.
That's where we are now.
And Russell Henley, too, at 35-1.
I saw that.
He's playing good golf.
Yeah, Henley's playing great golf. And credit to Ben Ann, who I kind of like called out last week as, no, there's these guys at 60-1 that I trust way more than Ben Ann, even though to actually win, which he didn't do. But I was, all those guys like Henley, Ann, Billy, and Glover, any of them, I didn't have money on any of them. I could have been happy for all of them. Like their stories in their own way over the last little bit all would make me really happy to have seen one.
It's nice to see Webb get back in there. He didn't have a chance to win, but I think he scratched like a top 5 or a top 6 or something.
I know he played well when I wasn't watching the tournament early in the week.
Okay. Let's get into the FedEx Cup. St. Jude. Top 50 remaining in the FedEx Cup standings will advance to next week at Olympia Fields for the BMW Championship. But we're here. We got 70 guys in the field. And if we go to the very top of the board at TPC Southwind, we see Scotty Scheffler at 7, Rory and Rahm at 8, Xander and Victor and Cantlay all at 16-1 at DraftKings Sportsbook right now. And then you have, let's see here, Tyrrell Hatton at 18. We'll just talk about all of those guys. The ones that jumped off the page, when I did the research show, Xander actually rated out really well. Of the big 3, I think I like Rahm the best of those guys at this course, but Hatton, not necessarily at 18. I would probably, he's down to 22 in real time at DraftKings Sportsbook right now. It's a more palatable number. Victor and Hatton were the 2 that I really gave a long look at, but I think that there's just other guys a little bit after I like basically the same.
I mean, I'm always thinking Victor, and I've been in on Hatton, but I agree. I have sort of not, I don't see myself really being part of any of this because I'm a sucker for that next tier, which is kind of a dead zone.
Well, we've seen the trend lines of recent form building and building and building and building to a win. Wouldn't it just make a lot of logical sense that Hatton would win this week?
I mean, yes, he's probably played the best, despite so many really quality names having not won tournaments this year. No one Hatton probably had better form than all of them to be coming home empty thus far.
Well, I see it here. I wrote him up in my column on DraftKings Network. So he came over to Phoenix in America for the first time this year. He's played 15 events on the PGA Tour. He's finished top 6, 7 top 6 finishes, and only 4 finishes outside the top 20 for Hatton in 15 events this year. And
incredible.
And it's not like he's how can I put this? We trust Hatton to win more than someone like Fleetwood, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, you just have to a certain extent at some point. And Hatton, I mean, I don't know where it stands right now, but I know for like weeks on end, Justin Ray would always tweet like he's the only player on tour who's there's both such premium categories. Right? Like putting was obviously one of them, approach, and maybe drive it. Like he was doing everything right. And it seems like he still is for the most part.
He is. And just even to go back and look at his numbers, like over the past 24 rounds in this field, he's top 10 in driving, and I think he's first in putting. It's crazy that he's like 6th in this field of all the best players in driving. It's just become such a big part of his game so far this season, even in approach. Like over his past 10 tournaments, he's averaging almost 3 strokes gained per tournament. He seems to have 2 really good rounds and 2 very mediocre rounds during the course of a tournament. Like that's what happened in Canada. I think he finished at minus 16, and he was 8 under Friday and Saturday and was even the other 2 days. It's really strange.
I would say at this price, I mean, you are getting kind of cocky and just like, yeah, I'm calling the win.
Didn't we do that last year with Will Z at this tournament?
Yes, but that was again, yeah, and that was a long road coming. The 4, I mean, Willie Z was glorious in those losses last year. Hatton's been glorious this year. He doesn't really have those almost wins like Willie had in that sense. I mean, I know he was second at the Players, but
yeah,
it was a great birdie on the last, and he still would have needed a lot of shit. Like he was still like 125 to 1 with like 2 holes to go, despite coming in second, if that makes any sense.
This is the reverse situation kind of happened in Scotland the week before the Open Championship, where I think he was the betting favorite on the back 9, and then he kind of the ball moved on him when he was trying to like chip it, and he just absolutely shanked it. It was really weird. And then Rory just went on. Well, Bobby Mack went unconscious, then Rory went even more unconscious and ended up winning that tournament. But Hatton won, I think, on like number 11, because I had money on Hatton, so I was following it. He was the betting favorite at some point on the back 9.
Yeah, I had him that week too. I've had him a lot. I would also say probably does feel time. Like the wheel of death probably is due to reward under 20-1 again. Like I know Rory won in Scotland. And he was clearly probably the pre-tournament favorite or right there. And Rahm won in obviously the Masters and Finau at Mexico, but it just feels like just been the top just feels like it's been so dead.
And that's why I kind of pointed out I'm considering a big bet on Rahm here at the top. And it's funny with Scheffler, because Scheffler's, had the amazing ball striking numbers, and it doesn't really seem like he's taken that far of a step back. It was a little bit back at the Open Championship, and the putting was still an abject failure. You can win this tournament without putting well. We've seen like Justin Thomas, the year that he won, lost, I think, 2 strokes putting, and Brooks came in second, and he lost like 3 strokes putting. So as long as your ball striking is on point in Memphis, you can play really well.
There'll be plenty of, I'm still scared shitless of Scheffler doing that. I wouldn't even know how to attack the very top.
It just Rahm was in a lull since the Masters, essentially. I mean, he put in a good effort to try to defend in Mexico. Finau got him, but it seems like he's made a few charges. Like he made a charge at Memorial on the final day. He made a charge not to win, but to like have a respectable finish. Like when you look at his numbers after the fact, you're like, oh shit, those are actually pretty good. And he did lose over 5 strokes putting at Muirfield Village as well. But the U.S. Open, after a disastrous first round, he played his way back into it, didn't give a shit about the Travelers. Then we just see him at the Open Championship, and he ends up coming in second place. No one was going to run down Harman. But we're now at the point of the season where I do think that he should be a gigantic favorite to win Player of the Year right now. Essentially, he's dodging a Harman, Wyndham Clark, or Scottie Scheffler winning the FedEx Cup. I think that's what it will take to take away Jon Rahm's major few second place finishes and 4 wins away from him to be the Player of the Year. But it does seem like his game is trending back upwards a little bit. And I don't know if he's going to defend next week at Olympia Fields when he beat Dustin in the playoff with that really long putt. But this is a course where I just do think his overall skill set plays really well. And if he can just find the putter a little bit, I think he's going to be fine.
I mean, it should be no secret to anyone who watches this show. I'm always a sucker for Rahm when having to pick between the top 3. He's, got the form. I don't know that just don't see myself getting there.
Okay, so in the 20 to 50 range, because there's a lot of names in here, are there people who jump out? Because I mentioned Hatton. I was even looking at Fleetwood a little bit for this tournament, depending on the number you can get him at. And you said you saw 40-1 hanging out there?
Yeah. Not like enhanced win, but one of those boosts,
But it was 33 regardless of that.
Yeah, they might have gone 28-40 or 33-40. But I was thinking about the 33. I mean, that's a guy who's in insane form. I don't know. Not like him winning a FedEx Cup event.
Yeah, that's what
sort
happened.
Of feels maybe above him,
Yeah,
but maybe that's where we always joke. Like that's where Finau had a break. That's where Willie Z had a break. It's not a major, but it's big. Like maybe will be his crowning achievement. I'd love for it to happen, whether I bet him or don't. But I think the 40's pretty attackable for me.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, if you're going to get double the odds on Fleetwood than Hatton, I know that I kind of proclaimed Hatton as more of a winner than Fleetwood. I don't think he's 2 times as much of a winner. And that allows me to do more with the betting card if that ends up going through. Listen, it's no surprise that I think this course will Morikawa is going to win this event at some point in his career. And it's been so long since he won. This feels like a good place with his game sort of rounding back into form. Open Championship notwithstanding when he was terrible and hit it out of bounds despite being a super accurate driver. But his accuracy numbers are still back up. The irons are getting better. He's actually putted pretty well over the course of the last 2 months. I mean, that might be all it takes. So him, Fleetwood, and then Burns is sitting there. Burns lost in the playoff to Answer here that year. And even when you look at his Wyndham numbers, like he gained over 4 strokes on approach, he gained over 4 strokes putting. He just needs to rein in his driving a little bit. And I think that Burns I don't want to call him a long shot because on DraftKings he's 35-1. I found some 45s out there. I think that might be as long as I want to go this week.
Okay, so a couple things. Both guys you mentioned, they are on my short list. Morikawa, I've seen as high as like 33, still 35. It seems incredibly fair. I'm not a guy who even bets this, so I could be willing to jump in. Last time I put my toe in the pool, he had that horrible first round somewhere, and then he went unconscious in the second round. But you can't win on tour, it seems, these days without 4 good rounds. I'm about Sam Burns. I see it like rounding. I see it rounding. I don't care about the miscut at the 3M. I'll look at all the numbers right before that. And that was right out of the Open where he finished 8th. That's like a free pass for me. 45-1. I'm staring at it too. And I'll even raise an insane, was I looking at? Apologize. I had Cam Young there. Cause I like Cam Young. I like Burns a lot. So I mentioned a miscut at the 3M. That was for Cam Young. You've already spoken about Burns. I like Cam Young. There's 55-1. I think that is pretty fair. Phillip Rivers.
I do think that a lot of these, do you think that the odds at DraftKings right now are going to funnel back down to match the other places? Or do you think the other places are going to move their odds to match DraftKings?
Okay, I am not sure. But I am treading lightly this week, as I've mentioned, to try to just breathe a little longer before I make my bets. But they have pretty much stayed stagnant. Like the lots of Monday morning movement, I haven't really seen. Now, maybe there's dudes that were 150-1 that are now 90. They weren't on my radar anyway. You mentioned you don't want to go farther than 45. I mean, I counted this as like a 25-man field. And maybe that's too generous. And listen, I'm a dud. I didn't sniff Wyndham Clark. I didn't sniff Brian Harman. There have been lots of long shots in big events. Keegan, Kitayama. I wasn't near any of them. And they might do it again. But I'm too committed to fuck them. I don't mean fuck them. I mean I'm not changing. I'm not changing at this moment. We're in August. It's almost over. I'm still betting how I bet. And God, please get me a score so I don't have to reload for football.
Is there anyone 50-1 plus that you do like? Because there was one,
yes.
I mean, it's not the outright number because what's the highest number on the board? Matt Neesmith is 350-1. Mackenzie Hughes is 300-1. Brandon Wu and Ben Griffin are 250-1. Poor Taylor Montgomery, 250-1. This season really fell off a cliff when it came down to it. I'm just trying to see who down here would I actually want to bet. And it's weird because Spawn hasn't hit a putt in 5 months. But when I was going back and doing the research, I forgot that he was either in the final group or the second to final group here last year, then shot a 78 in the final round. But his ball striking numbers are off the charts good, just consistently over the past 3 months. But the putting has been so bad. Can you just back someone like that, potentially even if he's 130-1 to win, what would you assume his top 20 odds are going to be?
Is he 130 at a lot of places or just one place?
He's 130 at DraftKings. I don't know what he is anywhere else. I didn't look that far. Oh, Morikawa boost up to 28? I'd take that.
So there's a guy between 50 and 100. And I think if you got 2 guesses, you would guess because I bet him and lose on him a lot. And it's almost disingenuous for me to bring him up. But the banana stand, for me, is the name that I like back there.
60-1 for Corey Connors is...
I see an 80.
Okay, even 80. I think this course makes a lot of sense for him, right?
Yeah. This is a banana stand course.
But
him.
But it never has been for him, which is a really weird thing because he's played better golf coming into the playoffs than he's currently playing right now. He's never finished better than 27th in this event And that's including WGCs, playoffs, whatever it might be. Like, the driving's always been really good. He's never really hit his approaches here well. They're very small greens at Southwind. So it relies on not necessarily a lot of chipping, but if you're not hitting all your greens, then you are going to have to rely on your chipping, which just is never really all that good. It has been better for him this year. I will say that. But I don't know. His season felt like it got a little bit derailed when he kind of, not imploded, but just did not give it a great effort in the final round of the PGA Championship.
I mean, yes and no. He hasn't played horribly since. 20 in Canada, 9 at Travelers, 19 in Scotland. I mean, those are miscut at the US Open. Yeah, the win always seems like a huge ask. I mean, I'm seeing Benny on at 50-1.
Yeah, I'm not listen. Yeah, I'm not betting Ben on at 50-1.
No, and I wasn't saying you were
at 45. But yeah, I think the odds are reasonable for him for sure. But if I try to like backlog, could I see him winning? Sure, I could see almost anyone in this field winning. Like, do I think that Aaron Rai and Corey Connors being the same number is a bit laughable? Sure. I think that Corey Connors is a much better player than Aaron Rai. But that also doesn't mean I think he's going to win this week.
Yeah, I mean, also the problem with Corey is there was a run here. I mean, I guess you would know the putter's now been lost, where it was a nice run of like you were going to get not red, but he hasn't gained strokes putting in, I mean, I don't know what the Open or the Genesis, but I assume he lost strokes putting there too. So it could be 6 straight events.
That tracks, but he's been gaining around the greens, which is something he never does. Like over his past 5 tournaments, he's getting a half stroke per event around the greens. Doesn't seem like a lot, but throughout the course of his career, he is losing a half stroke per event around the greens. And I've seen him chip himself out of tournaments before.
That's always in play, regardless of what Azinger remembers. Here's the other part of it, Pat. And this is probably more so to players of higher quality than Corey Connors when I bring this up. All season, the elites on tour many times lamented this elevated event world in which they created, and it's a new normal. It created a lot of golf in like condensed periods of time. And there were some complaints about fatigue, and I'm not here to feel bad for any of these guys, but I would say almost all of the really good players haven't teed up since the Open.
Correct.
Fresh, ready. It's cash season. There's guys that play for glory. There's guys that play for cash. So where's Matt Kuchar? He didn't finish top 70.
No, and most of the guys who really believe that went to live.
I guess you're right in that respect. Yeah. And have we had long? I remember Keegan won the BMW. I mentioned all the long shots that have won this year. We were in a run where like long shots weren't touching FedEx Cup events. Did they pull them off last year?
Trying to think. Straka lost to Zalatoris in this event. I believe Cantlay won the BMW Championship, and didn't Scheffler win? Or did Rory win? Rory won the FedEx
Rory
Cup.
won. Yeah, Rory won.
So individual winners: Zalatoris, Cantlay, Rory, Cantlay, Finau, DJ, Rahm, DJ, Reed, Thomas, Rory, Bryson, Keegan, Tiger. Because Keegan won. Bryson won back-to-back in 2018 because I remember we hit him, I believe, at the Northern Trust at either 80-1. Yeah, he was 80
but
to 1.
We didn't go back.
No, we didn't. He was 40 the next week. So I guess he would have been the long shot winner before Keegan, who was 100 at the BMW Championship.
Sure, but when we look at Bryson, there's like a pedigree there where that fits the other names.
Now,
even though that happened yes. So sure, if a guy who's longer odds, who we believe is on the precipice of being one of those players, maybe you said Burns 45 should be your stop point. Other than my pathetic obsession with the banana stand, I agree. I'm not going down this board, and I'm going to build that sucker like 30 to 50 because I'm too cheap to play the top, I guess.
Well,
I don't know, but the top is so due.
It really feels like that. The one I would probably go to from that range that we're talking about, 50 plus, and he's just not figured out this course over the course of his career. But I think the answer is Keegan. If you say that Corey Connors is a really good fit for a course, which I believe that he is ball striking wise, isn't Keegan exactly the same, but he putts?
and he's well, I guess Corey won Valero. Yeah, no, Keegan should be coming here with confidence. We're not in the Northeast. I don't know how that affects him, but yeah, anytime it's like a landmine sort of filled property, Keegan can always lurk.
And Keegan's still one of the few. I guess he would have to win the FedEx Cup, but if he wins this week and he wins Eastlake, maybe he would need to win all three. That's probably not happening. I'm thinking of outside people that could win Player of the Year, because he won the Zozo earlier on in the season. So if he wins 2 of these playoff events, he'll then have 4 wins in a FedEx Cup, which would look pretty good. Probably doesn't beat Rahm's 4 wins in a major, but still a pretty good season for Keegan.
An incredible season. Good for him. I didn't know that the Keegan Player of the Year mention would show up today, but
it might actually be impossible. I think he would have to go win, and Rahm would have to play poorly.
Yeah, he'd have to win the FedEx Cup, which would put him at 3, and even still, they'd be like, FedEx Cup ain't no Masters, pal.
No, I'm saying he'd have to win this week, the week after, and then at Eastlake to give him 5 wins on the season. Because if you're not gonna,
and what does a guy like if a guy's in 58th place? What would he have to finish to get a play next week?
Well, it depends on how many points. Oh, you mean like if he's currently 58th?
Yeah,
I don't know. They're worth
probably amazing.
They're worth 4 times as much.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So see. I looked this up yesterday about the cut line. It does say that there is a cut line this week to 50 players after Friday. They're very bad at messaging, the PGA Tour. They like changing things too often. It's very hard to find the right information on things. Like, do I have to scour Wikipedia and trust that? Because I tried to look up the official site. I went on the media guide, like nothing.
And there's no like track record. Like there have been instances where the PGA Tour's official website and tournament websites are wrong, and Wikipedia is right. And then there are times where it's obviously the worst. I mean, reverse, where Wiki's wrong and obviously the tour website has it correct, but you sometimes just never know. That's the funny part about the PGA Tour. They're just a step ahead of the CFL in terms of communicating to people who care. Not a compliment.
Well, that's all I kind of got from the betting board this week, to tell you the truth. Like it's all the guys. There's only 70 guys in the field. We think 25 of them can potentially win. I mean, do you want to mention Straka? He lost in the playoff last year. He was second at the Open. He won the John Deere. He's having a good year.
Yeah, and I could see him from early indications. He's probably the most popular long shot bet, like north of 50-1 that I've seen on the webs this morning. Cam Davis getting some love in that respect. His ceiling seems to play anywhere.
Tom Kim is playing this event.
When JT had that shot in the woods on 18 yesterday, obviously Jim Nantz and the broadcast had no idea. We saw anyone who cares about the sport saw the Cam Young shot put in their face 800 times during the week. I thought they would like maybe reference it or show it. They don't care.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone good. We didn't bring up Ricky. The way he's striking it seems like a lovely fit, but I missed it once. I'll miss it twice.
Okay.
Hatton is the same number that Ricky. Well, no, I guess he's better than that. But in some places, the same number as Ricky at the 3M.
Hatton is?
I mean, at the Rocket. Hey, you said he was 18-1?
He's 18-1. He dropped down to 22-1 at DraftKings while we were doing the show. So I don't think there was much interest for him, but he's higher in other spots.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It's hard to see anyone running to bet him at 18.
For sure. Like, it's not getting worse than 18. So the bets in one and dones for the week. I have my one and done. I have Cuss one and done. I'm taking Burns, and he's taking Ricky. So you get to make a selection here. Although I think we're about done. I think the second place from Henley buried us, and Cuss is going to win one and done for the first time.
It's coming up, Cuss. It'll end week 1 when he uses the Chargers as his survivor, as he claims. I think I have Scheffler available.
Yeah, you do, actually. Unless you used him at the Open, which I don't think that you did.
No.
All right, Scheffler. Scheffler it is. The guy who updated the one.
Maybe I did, actually, Pat.
I don't know. The guy hasn't updated. And I think he used Rory.
You're right. I did use Rory. Thank you.
Actually,
for
no,
your
you
memory.
used Scotty at the U.S. Open. I see it here in front of me.
Okay, so give me. Oh, I got all good players out.
You know what?
Cam Young.
Cam Young?
I'm out. I can't win. I'd have to run the table.
You've
Him
already
as a machine.
you've already used Cam Young.
Wyndham Clark. I don't even care. I guarantee you I haven't used him. You don't even have to search your sheet.
All right, Wyndham Clark it is for you. So betting wise, I'll commit to Burns right now. I'll bet that as soon as we finish the show. But I'm thinking Hatton, Morikawa, Fleetwood, Burns. Make those my 4. Move on to next week.
Yeah, I don't know if I can get to the top, but you said it. Morikawa, Burns, Cam Young, and there's that Fleetwood boost. I don't have the willpower to resist, so I probably got to get there.
It's funny because I don't see the Fleetwood boost. I have I have Fowler and Morikawa as my boosts. Maybe they know me a little bit better.
Maybe, but here's the thing. I'm kicked off this site. So I need someone to make it for me. And you would be an option, but you have a different boost. And my buddy whose account I hijack is out of province. But in Ontario, Pat, if you have friends in Ontario who aren't kicked off of Bet365, they're showing a Fleetwood boost.
Okay. So that's what we'll do for that. And maybe JJ Spawn I'll play as a top 20, top 10, depending on the right number that I can find. All that's going to be in the newsletter, so sub to that for free down in the description. I do want to talk about the schedule a little bit. I wanted to backload that because I said we'd talk about it. That if we're thinking about winners and losers, it's hard to imagine anyone got screwed more than the Canadian Open.
Every reiteration, before the last major schedule shakeups, they went from after the Open Championship to before the U.S. Open.
But hold on. Before the U.S. Open is a good spot in my mind.
For them, yes, it became a good spot. You are right. But now it's before Memorial and the U.S. Open.
And the issue is, it's before the Memorial. The Memorial is going to be, and it's a signature event. And then it's going to be the week, 2 weeks later, it's going to be the U.S. Open. But the week after that, the Travelers has remained as a signature event as well. So it goes signature event, major signature event. There's no way anyone is going to play in Detroit or Canada. Just why would they?
Why? Okay, this is now I'm calling something out. I get why Genesis, Memorial, Bay Hill will always be signature events. But there was a cluster of events that were supposed to rotate in their signature purse. So why the fuck does Travelers get it again?
This I do not know. Couldn't tell you.
Listen, my recollection was they said these would be rotating things. They would rotate them to give every event the carrot of the fields that those purses would bring. So let's rotate them. Not Genesis, not the preeminent ones. And even in our discussion, Pat, you made a great comment in that a lot of people's first reactions were this is bad for waste management. But you said, no. Stop the clock. The waste management has built itself up where it doesn't even need that anymore. It's above it. Even though the purse might not be as big, it will have no issue getting a field that we all love.
Yeah,
none.
It's not going to have the field that it had this year because it's sandwiched in between 2 signature events. Because I am kind of glad Pebble got the signature event status. It's going to suck as a pro-am to watch that on TV. However, it'll be nice to see all the best players at Pebble. I think that everyone can kind of agree on that. It's a beautiful course to watch on TV, and having a reason to actually tune in to watch it is going to be nice. Then you're going to watch it, and it's going to be Jim Nantz doing interviews with country music people that I've never heard of, and it's going to be like, what the hell is going on? I don't need to see for the 500th year in a row Ray Romano's swing path on Kiona Minolta Vision, or whatever the hell that is. But it'll be nice to see the great visuals and the great players there. The one that gets screwed at the beginning of the year is Farmers. No one's going to be playing. The Farmers field this year is going to look like a lot like the Pebble field has looked like in years past.
That is crazy. Yeah, it's looking at it. It's in big trouble, at least for next year.
So that got rotated from Phoenix to Pebble Beach. Maybe it will get rotated to Torrey Pines next year. Waste Management won't have the field that it had this year as a signature event, but it's still going to listen, Thomas is going to play it. Scheffler's going to play it. Rahm is going to play it. Like all the regulars who always played it anyway are still going to play it, because then you still have Riviera the next week. Did you see? Then Mexico has moved to February, which I think is really good because that wasn't drawing anyone anyway. So you can kind of just throw that to the side as like, hey, here's a bye week for you. And then you have Honda, which is now the Palm Beach Classic because it doesn't have a sponsor. Those are just bye weeks, a 2-week bye week for all the good players.
And when is Honda?
The week after Mexico, and the week before, back-to-back no-cut signature events. Bay Hill is no-cut. The Players is no-cut this year.
So how big is that field? Wow, that's horrible.
I agree.
That is the play. I cannot believe, I get the stars can make rules, but like if the players, like in all the sports, it's still a union filled with a bunch of offensive linemen. They're not all quarterbacks. How they couldn't protect that event to be full field for their fucking their body is such a fucking embarrassment. Other than match play being gone, that's the second most disgusting thing on the schedule.
It really devalues the players, in my mind.
It's a joke.
It makes it no different. I mean, it'll have slightly more money. That's great and everything. But if you're not going to have the biggest field possible with a cut line and really open it up, like, you know, for a while, it was being talked about. I mean, there's no fifth major. Like I always kind of joke, the John Deere is the 43rd major, if that's the case. There are 4 majors, but it was very clearly the event that was closest to them in terms of prestige, in terms, I mean, for money, sometimes it was more. But this just makes it exactly the same as Riviera and Bay Hill.
It is no different. There is nothing special about it. It's inferior to the Genesis. Like, maybe you could say it was on the same level, but that should never be the case. And you're right. Sure, it's the 5th major, but it should have been the 4 majors, gap, the players, definitive gap in terms of how we rank the events. No more, man. You're fucking it's an also ran.
So selfishly, we got some nice vacation time in here.
Yeah, good.
So
good.
I can do all my Genesis content, and then I can just basically take 2 weeks off for Mexico and Honda because that's going to be nothing. And then if I really wanted to, I could take some time off after the Valspar and come back for Valero before the Masters and really get into Masters. Then the Masters, and then the Heritage remains a signature event, which is a cut event, which, you know, I always like for the Heritage. And then it goes, let's see here. There's a alternate field event for Corrales that same week. And then you have, let's see, I could leave on like the Wednesday and then come back in 2 weeks. I'll miss Zurich again. No big deal. Then it's the CJ Cup honoring Byron Nelson. And then you go Wells Fargo, Myrtle Beach, which is an alternate event. So then you go basically Quail Hollow and PGA Championship back-to-back weeks. Like they've just basically loaded everything around the majors. And maybe from a structure standpoint and TV ratings standpoint, that's when they know that people will care the most about golf. And they're willing to punt away weeks on these other events.
Yeah, and I don't think that is a bad thing in the sense that, like, they'll still be there. They're still on CBS or NBC, but I think they even understand if you're not, you don't have to watch. If fields will be shitty. Now we love to bet them. We love to make lineups. We love to hopefully have a sweat. So we're the people that are always watching. But yeah, this schedule definitely created some gaps.
Where are the Olympics this year? Paris? Okay, so that makes more sense because the Olympics are the week after the Open Championship, but that's a very short flight to Paris.
Yes, the week after.
Yeah, it's
so are Harmon and Windy C representing the USA at the moment, or what?
Yeah, currently I believe they are.
Oh, go team.
Opposite field event to be determined. Okay, that's nice for the schedule. That's in between. Yeah, like I said, Colonial and Canada really get screwed here, being sandwiched in between the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open, and 2 other signature events. So hopefully next year some of the stuff flips. Like Now, whether it be Colonial or the Canadian Open, if they get that Travelers Championship spot. Although it doesn't look like, because the no-cut signature events, I believe, are the ones that are stable all year round. Like, they're always going to be those. So you have Genesis, Bay Hill, Memorial, and the Players Championship now, with Heritage, Travelers, Pebble Beach, and I guess Quail Hollow, because Quail Hollow remains a cut event despite being a signature event for the second straight year. I thought that would have been locked in as one of the other ones as a part of that rotation. Maybe that can flop onto something else.
And as for Canada, I guess getting shafted, it probably hurts. No, this is probably a dumb comment, because the RBC Association, regardless of field date, is incredibly beneficial to Canada. But RBC, once they keep Heritage elevated, they almost be like, okay, you can do whatever you want with Canada. Like, in that respect, they're like, you know, the tour whets their appetite enough by giving them an elevated, and they, I don't know, can't. With what I've been hearing about Canada and RBC even having to renegotiate, Canada's probably could be one of the cheaper dates on calendar for you to put your name on.
Probably, and it probably does enough boots on the ground and ratings within Canada for some of these places that maybe it kind of.
Oh yeah, it meets its quota for like tickets and suite sales 100%. Like internally as an event, so the tour loves it, I'm sure.
Is there even a course for this year?
Yes, so they're in Hamilton this year, Pat. St. George's bailed on 25, and I can tell you the winds are not looking kind for Oakdale in 26. For how great an event it was, that is now being used against it, in the sense that we have to vote as a membership at the end of this year. St. George's membership voting at the end of last year and saying no, I feel like has emboldened people on our membership to sort of look, they said no, we could say no. But there's this campaign that's working, sadly, in that, and you can get it from a sense in saying, it was so good. It was so magical. It was a Canadian heritage moment. We'll never be able to top it. Like, let's just leave it at that and have that memory be it. And people are kind of warmed up to that idea. I would also say 3 years does seem pretty close. If they said we want to come back in like 7 years, I feel like my club would say yes in a heartbeat. Like, that's a gap. 3, it just feels like it will be here right again. Yeah. And we still don't have our driving range. Everything else has been fine for a while, but we still do not have our driving range. And I'm a snob who hates mats, like I'm sure any golfer.
Yeah.
When you're just when grass is the always option there. So
well, you mats give you a sense that you're hitting the ball really well, even when you're not hitting the ball really well.
Yeah, because your club doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It's easier to come through it regardless.
Yeah, when you chunk a ball off a mat, it doesn't give you the same sort of chunk that you do when you actually hit it off the grass, because your club isn't sticking into the ground. So that ends up becoming a problem when you head to one. You've been chunking the ball the entire time. Now, you should be able to tell from the sound, obviously, but some people can't. And you get this like, oh yeah, I'm hitting it pretty well right now. Bring that to the course. Like, no, you are not swinging the club at all. Fall series is really weird. So you can play yourself into elevated events during the fall series. But anyone who is already inside, it's either the top 70 or the top 50, I'm not quite sure, of the FedEx Cup standings when it ends this year, cannot accrue FedEx Cup points during the fall series. But they can play and take the money. They just get no FedEx Cup points.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see how that works. I mean, listen, I like it. It's 4:00. There's like 3 afternoon games on, and there's a TV for golf. Yeah.
I'll leave you with this. We just recorded the Cuss Corner with Tim and Garion. That's coming out. I think there'll be another one that comes out in between that one. That one will probably come out a week before the NFL season starts. And we're going to record our best quarterback stuff soon for next week. So that's going to be, maybe I'll release the Cuss Corner 44 on Thursday, and then I'll have 45 in the can for before.
But you might get a mini out of us doing something this week.
Yeah, too. But I always put the minis together as a part of like a big episode to release, like when I'm on vacation or something like that. Or you can watch it in real time. Either way, Cuss thinks, this is topic number 1 on Cuss Corner, He thinks that there should be places where average Joes like him can go to go ride in a real F1 car on a track.
Well, like there are tracks all across everywhere where you can get in a race car and rent the track.
No, a real F1 car that like Lewis Hamilton drives.
Tell Cuss what the insurance premium on his Joyride would be, and he would probably say, yeah, no, average Joe, I can't do that. Like, what is it? So I don't understand. He wants to get into the real car. He wouldn't even know what to do.
Well,
to take a picture or to drive?
To drive.
No offense to Tim. Guys like me and him, we wouldn't even fit in the fucking car.
That was Garrett's point. Garrett's like, you're not fitting in that car, man.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
no one to.
He also made the comment that they would need to be able to adjust it for him.
Can he drive
a standard? No.
I don't even. I mean, obviously they like shift gears, but it's probably like a setup that's even crazier than your like the dude's Mazda.
Oh, for sure. It's all the pedal gear shifting.
Like, and it's buttons. It's like button gears on the wheel.
He proclaimed that's easier to do than actually shifting gears.
Because I've kind of caught myself in a rabbit hole on YouTube at the moment. And I guess you watch one or two videos and the algo, like now it just sends you them. But it's just like, and I'm not even an F1 like fan, but it's just like behind the scenes paddock stuff from an F1 weekend, like setting up the paddock and the pits. I don't even so I've like just recently been looking at the cars or factory tours of like Red Bull and Aston Martin of their teams. So I don't know. That's the YouTube rabbit hole I'm currently in. So this is a weird topic for me as someone that doesn't even care about F1. Tim is insane. Like, you don't need me to say it. I don't even know what he's thinking.
Yeah, so we have that. What else did we have here? I talked about porn theaters. But that's me.
Is that because Pee Wee Herman died?
Yeah. I had to give a special RIP to my doppelganger, Paul Rubens.
And I heard that was a setup.
Well, you can listen to the show about it. It was my contention. When VCRs became a thing, like, why did porn theaters even exist?
I agree. And I will obviously listen to the thing. But in some of the Paul Rubens death aftermath, like, it's not like he was at the Little Mermaid and pulled his dick out. He was in a fucking jerk-off theater and pulled his dick out. Like, someone was there to get it. There was like how do you... That's revolting to even... the thought of those places.
The last one was his new business plan for personal valets at grocery stores.
I don't even... I mean, there's like... What a more like sorry. I just don't even know. He's like literally referring to every store. He's not even like referring to, maybe that could work in a couple locations around like the country.
Well,
like a couple.
I had pointed out.
I don't even know how
like you would probably have to pay $100 to get that service per person for someone to go around and shop with you. And it was just because he didn't want to scan his, he didn't want to
pack just parking the car.
No.
What a fucking.
No, it's like a personal shopper. He just wants to hire a personal assistant.
But in some respects, if you want that, then you just do the like you can order it to your door. People that grow to the store, like it's also a very personal thing. And maybe they're like self-conscious. Like they don't need to see me putting 2 boxes of Oreo ice creams into my cart.
Yeah, but
like,
but as he's always said, he needs to be the one to that's the mango he wants. So he needs to be the one to actually pick it. He just needs someone to walk the cart around for him and bring the groceries to his car.
Why is he such a baby?
I don't know. I mean, if he wasn't, we wouldn't even have a show.
I guess so, but like, he's just has very many like baby tendencies, like baby boy.
He needs a parcel pickup to come back. Is that still a thing?
No, I think now they've just like, if that's what you need, you pay a few more bucks, we'll send it right to your front door.
Easy enough. All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. We'll be doing our best quarterback rankings before we do AFC wins, NFC wins. Football will be back. We have to work out a date too I talked to Rob, I talked to Cam, I talked to Raza, Tim, and now I'm telling you, I want to do the win totals draft with the 6 of us. I don't really know the logistics of how we're going to set that up, but I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that. I love that concept. That'll be great.
So we'll try to get all this stuff out to you starting next week. If you missed the ranking shows for football, those are already out on the feed. You missed the research show for the St. Jude, that's already up on the feed. So remember to smash the like, sub to the channel, rate and review the podcast, sub to the newsletter, all that fun stuff. And remember to play in the DraftKings Listeners League. That is down in the description right now. Okay? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!